How's it going, everybody? It's Pilot Fam, and we are back with another FPL video, or at least somewhat FPL related video. Today, we're going to be doing our 22-23 Premier League predictions. We're going to do everything from the sack race to who wins the whole lot and who gets the Champions League at the end of the season, Conference League, FA Cup, Carabao Cup, surprise package, flop of the season, and everything in between. If you haven't done so already, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe channel if you're new, and turn those notification bells on so you can get the content as soon as it is readily available. Also, drop us a follow over on Twitter so you can keep up to date with any and all FPL news. And give us a follow over on Twitch so you can join us live for our preview, deadline, and any impromptu FPL streams over on Twitch this season. We will be doing a deadline stream this Friday, 1 hour before the FPL deadline, a very important deadline. There's a pinned comment down below to let you know the details on that. Now, without further ado, let's get into those predictions. Right, let's get into it. We've got our tier list up on the screen here. We've got all 20 teams in the Premier League for this season. Now, typically what I do is I go from bottom to top, makes it a little bit more interesting, and we're going to go through all the various different cups, the Carabao Cup, FA Cup, Champions League, obviously the Premier League as well, Europa Conference League. We're going to go through the flop of the season, who I think is not going to do well, that maybe have gone for a big money move, a surprise player, a young player, the player of the season, and then the golden boot winner as well. I'm not sure if I mentioned the sack race, but that's also important as well. So let's go with relegation. Now, I think there's probably about 6 or 7 teams that I think could go in this relegation spot, and I'll put them there off the start, and then we'll slowly peel them away. I think Everton is definitely one of those teams that could go in the relegation zone based on just last season where they missed out by basically 1 point. I say missed out, but they managed to dodge it by like 1 point or 2. Bournemouth is definitely one of the teams that they're going to be there because obviously being newly promoted, you're odds on to go back down. Southampton is another one, really struggled towards the end of last season and just barely missed the drop. Ultimately comfortable in the end, but again, still not where they want to be. I think that Brentford, second season syndrome could be an issue for them this season as well. Leeds United under Jesse Marsch haven't inspired me that much either. Fulham and Nottingham Forest, again, 2 teams that were newly promoted. So these are pretty much like the 7 that I think could go in here. So I'm just going to move them all up here, and then I'll slowly put them in one by one, who I think is going to be relegated, and in what order. But I think the most obvious one out of all of these to come 20th is going to be Bournemouth. And the reason for that is, if you've watched any of Planet FPL's Correspondent Week, it's fantastic. Make sure you go check it out. There's one for each team on there. It's great, great stuff. Make sure you go check out the Patreon as well. I'm certainly going to be doing that soon. Basically, Bournemouth just don't have any defenders, pretty much. And again, we're all looking at Haaland, captain in Bournemouth for game week 2. And it's just going to be probably a nightmare for Bournemouth to defend against. They are looking to play a 5-4-1, according to the Correspondent. And they just don't have enough defenders to play that system, basically. So Scott Parker's not happy. You would know him. He used to manage Fulham. And it just seems like when things go bad for Scott Parker, he just can't really turn it around, and the game kind of passes his teams by. So I think Bournemouth is probably in that similar scenario yet again. They'll probably be a bit more possession oriented than his Fulham was, and a slightly different team, but they still need to get signings through the door before the end of August. And I think Fulham probably goes in 19th. Similar situation. I think that they're just another team. Again, Marco Silva, manages them now, formerly of Everton. He also is just not happy with the signings that they need in place. I think Fulham have slightly better quality. I think Mitrovic had a fantastic last season and is a different beast than what he was a couple seasons ago in the Premier League. I just think that just not enough quality in depth that'll get them out of the relegation zone this season. Now, this one is a bit of a tricky one. I think that all of these teams have merits to potentially go down. And I think that each one of them could easily do really well this season. And I think each one of them would do really badly this season. The team that I'm actually going to put here, and this is not going to be a very liked thing But I unfortunately think Everton are going to be the other team that gets relegated this season. And the reason being for that is because the signings haven't been that inspiring. Yes, Dwight McNeil's, done okay, but Dominic Calvert-Lewin looks to be injured before the start of the season again, and they just have no real replacement there. It just seems like Frank Lampard is maybe tactically inept at times, and that is why, personally, I think that Frank Lampard is going to be the first manager to be sacked as well. I think it's going to be similar to what happened last season, where they had Rafa Benitez for half of it. Frank Lampard might get off on the bad start, and just not be up to the task, basically. They might bring in an interim or bring in somebody who they think they can steady the ship, maybe a Sam Allardyce, or see if they can keep them out of relegation. But ultimately, I think this time, lightning's not gonna strike twice, and I think ultimately they will go down. And I think it's going to be pretty close, I think. But I think ultimately Everton will be the team that goes down. I think the teams that are just escaping relegation, I think, will be Leeds in 17th. I'm just going to move these ones up here just for the time being. I think Leeds will be the one that'll probably potentially be the one that could go back down. I think that just not enough strength and depth. They lost two of their most crucial players in Calvin Phillips and Rafinha to both Man City and Barcelona respectively. I just don't see what they could potentially do apart from just try to attack teams, because I think defensively they're all over the place. They have to rely on Melié's shot-stopping ability, but even with the ball at his feet and trying to play out from the back, he's not the most assured. He's very confident, but can make mistakes as well. So I think Leeds could be in a position where they do concede just too many goals, but they might just barely scrape it over the likes of Everton, because I think at least with Leeds, you get a consistent amount of goals across their team because of the way that they play. With Everton, it's kind of more focused into crossing it into one guy, and I'm not sure if that's going to be, the kind of weapon that you need. If it gets figured out, well, that's the one plan. Leeds will just keep attacking you from all different angles, akin to the Leipzig style. In 16th, I'm actually going to go with Southampton. Again, it's probably going to be pretty close between them, Leeds, and Everton, I think. I personally see Southampton recruiting decently well. It's just the system change that I'm worried about, because you swap to a three center-back system, a 3-4-3 or a 3-4-1-2, or however you want to play it. If you have your wing-backs kind of playing in a flat five, however which way you want to do it, having an extra defender doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be as defensively solid. We saw that with Man United, and we've seen that with other teams as well. But I think Hasenhüttl's tactically, kind of assured enough to whereas he wants to get that defense sorted. That's his main priority from what we've seen this preseason. And I think that he will potentially be able to do that, because he has some decent defender. I think he needs probably one more really high-quality center-back in there, maybe to replace Bednarek. He's already got his defensive midfielder, who looks very good in Lavia. And then they just need to have a consistent stream of goals up front, and then they should be fine. If they get a very good striker that can play up front, that maybe is either competition to Adams or better, and then they have another key center back come in, then I think they should be fine and could be fighting in around the 11th to 14th spots in there. Next, I'm actually going to go with Nottingham Forest in 15th. I think Forest should be pretty comfortable this season. I think their signings have been very good. I think that Jesse Lingard is a fantastic addition for their squad. The main reason to that is because Forest and Fulham and Bournemouth in particular, they're not going to have much of the ball, or at least you would think that they wouldn't have as much of the ball as other teams. And that favors Jesse Lingard quite a lot. And if he's going to be playing in the 3-4-1-2 system, in behind the likes of Brennan Johnson and another striker, looks like it might be Surridge off the start of the season for Forest. But Jesse Lingard loves spinning into open space and running into open space like he did for West Ham, and could be a fantastic FPL asset at $6 million. But I think the gap between 15th and 16th is going to be much bigger. I think it's going to be at least a win, maybe 4 points in that kind of area. And I think from 15th up will be comfortable. I think it's the 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, which could all be like clustered and could be a bit, nervy days. And then in 14th, I've gone with Brentford as well, because I think the fact that, second season syndrome and all that, but I think that Brentford, they're looking at Damsgaard to potentially bring in. They have Josh De Silva, who I think is a fantastic player and is highly rated by the Brentford fans. They still have Mbeumo, they still have Ivan Toney. They're looking to go to a 4-3-3 system, I think, this season as well, which could help them out in the attacking areas, because Mbeumo plays better off the right, and Toney plays better when he's the lone striker through the middle. It just adds less defensive solidity, but I think Brentford are very good going forward. If they can get the creativity side of things down, then I think they will have no problems this season. Maybe some issues at center back, but I think Raya is a good enough goalkeeper with his distribution that he can potentially mask some of that in there. I think Brentford have also signed Ben Mee, if I'm correct in saying that as well, who I think is, experienced head, someone who can come in and help out as well to kind of cover for the potential early season injuries that they may have. Moving on to 13th, there's a couple potential players in here, but I'm actually going to go with Aston Villa. I think Aston Villa's signings they're interesting. I think Babakar Kamara is a very good player, a very solid player. I can see how he would fit into the team as like the anchor. You have John McGinn, newly promoted captain as well, will play potentially alongside Ramsey in midfield. Does that leave a place out for the likes of Douglas Luiz? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe in a situation they might play in a diamond at times as well, and maybe play just two strikers. That would mean Coutinho gets left out potentially. I just think that Steven Gerrard still has a situation where he has to kind of work out his best 11, because I still don't think he knows that. Leon Bailey's impressed in preseason at 5 million in FPL, could be very good. Personally, though, I think there's still questions to be kind of answered there. I think their defensive structure is better now that they have Diego Carlos in there and Konsa. They can be both rash at times, but I think that it should be quite solid there. Cash and Digne, assuming both fit, are very good. Martinez is fantastic at playing the ball out from the back and a good shot stopper. Had a bit of a poor season last season, but I think should definitely improve. I think overall Villa will probably be disappointed with a 13th place finish, but I can easily see anywhere from 10th to 13th being quite close. That's probably the next jump from like Brentford up to like 13th. Is probably going to be like maybe that 3-4 point gap, and then all the way up to maybe even the Conference League spot. It's going to be very, very close, I think. A lot of these teams could be interchanged. Next in, so we have 14th, 13th. In 12th place, I'm going to go with Wolves. And the reason I'm going to go with Wolves is because I just don't think that they're going to score as many goals as they should. They're switching to more of an attacking system, and again, another 4-3-3. Does Jimenez hinder them? I'm not so sure. I think that personally they're better off without Jimenez. Unfortunately, after that injury, he's just not the same player. And I just think that he is just kind of the shadow of himself, which is kind of a shame to see, because I think he was a fantastic FPL asset, fantastic footballer a few seasons ago before that head injury. But I do think that the likes of Neto and Podence, and especially Morgan Gibbs-White, could be very influential into how many goals they do score. That being said, I think they're probably going to be lower than what they had expected. And Wolves could be one of those teams that's like, not a dark horse per se, but a team that could be, they can go as high as potentially 7th, but they could also go as low as like 18th, potentially, depending on how the new system change goes. So, again, one to watch for there. In 11th place, I'm going to go with Crystal Palace, I think. I think Crystal Palace is a fantastic team. Again, the loss of Conor Gallagher is massive, but I've seen enough in preseason to know that Eze is probably going to be more than capable of taking up that role. Defensively, there's still questions for that central midfield, but they have made signings in that midfield area to help strengthen that. They have plenty of depth up front. They also have Zaha, obviously still being a mainstay. Elise, who was fantastic at the latter half of last season. And I think that their defensive structure is now in place. They've also just signed a new goalkeeper as well. And I think that they are looking good, The only question I would say is potentially they could get off on a bad start. The fixtures aren't great to start with. But if they can kind of ride that wave, maybe pick up a point versus Arsenal on the opening day of the season, there's chances where they could potentially progress and even break that top half of the table, because it seems like every season Crystal Palace just barely can't make it into the top 10. Speaking of 10th, we're going to put Brighton in 10th. I think Brighton are just kind of that team that they're always going to be really good. Doesn't matter which personnel you put in there. Doesn't matter who is on the pitch. You could have the goalkeeper playing up front, the forward playing in goal. If Graham Potter is the manager, Brighton will do well. Obviously, the loss of Yves Bissouma could be pretty big. And if Cucurella does go to Chelsea or Man City or whoever he's rumored to go to, there could be a scenario where, yes, they're probably not as great defensively, but Graham Potter typically finds out what the weakness is and then corrects it with either signings or improving a player or changing their position. And Leandro Trossard at wingback has been fantastic in preseason as well. I just think Brighton are just solid. They're the 10th place team for me. Moving on to, actually, we're going to talk about the Carabao Cup now. And I think it's pretty obvious who I'm probably going to choose. I think it's going to be Man City. They didn't win it last season. It ended up going over to Liverpool. But I think that City will probably get back to their winning ways with that. They'll get the Carabao Cup. Their squad depth is pretty good. Almost as good as, or probably slightly better than Liverpool's this season. Liverpool has definitely closed that gap. The loss of Sterling and Jesus and Zinchenko have definitely lowered that. If they don't manage to get a left back over the line, I think they could be in a bit of trouble. Yes, they have some youngsters in the academy, but Pep Guardiola probably wants a solid signing, hence why they were after Cucurella. But I think Man City will win the Carabao Cup. And then also, let's see who's going to win the FA Cup. I think it's going to be the FA Cup most winning team, as it were. I'm going to go with Arsenal. I think Arsenal have looked fantastic in preseason. I think they have a very good chance of winning silverware this season. Potentially also in Europa League, they could go quite far as well. I just think Arsenal are very good. I think from what I've seen in preseason, how that front three is working with Martinelli, Jesus, and Bukayo Saka, if they stay fit, they could be fantastic this season. So I'm going to go with Arsenal for the FA Cup and Man City for the Carabao Cup. Now, moving back to the 9th place team. Who am I going to put in 9th place? There are a few contenders here. I think, personally, I'm going to go with Newcastle United. And I think Newcastle, that's going to be a fantastic position for them this season. I think that should be their goal this season. Get into the top half of the table. Show some kind of expression on the ball. Show the playing style that Eddie Howe wants to implement. They're bringing in a couple good signings here and there. Trippier from last season, although he only played a couple games, was a revelation on the team. Bruno Guimaraes is potentially in a couple years' time going to be snapped up by one of the top teams. Like, how they managed to get him and how good he is just crazy. But could be loyal to Newcastle. He could be the reason why Newcastle end up finding a European place in a couple seasons' time. I think top half is what Newcastle should be looking for. If they can manage to scrape 7th place, I think that would be a brilliant season. That's basically would be like everything went correct. Everything was fantastic. Everyone stayed fit. They played out of their minds. And then they got 7th place. I think that would be probably the best possible finish, I think, personally, for Newcastle this season. But I think top half of the table is what they're going to be looking for. Just the reinvigoration of the midfield. St. Maximin looks to be playing just of free will, as he normally does. If Callum Wilson stays fit, they could be absolutely fantastic. And maybe, because Callum Wilson came out in an interview recently that last season, at the start of the season, they just weren't fit. So if Eddie Howe puts them into a more of a tighter, more strict fitness regime, maybe Callum Wilson stays fit for longer, and we could see him potentially not getting injured at all, because that would be fantastic, because I personally like him as a player, as well as an FPL asset, and could be quite good in 7.5 million. Moving on to 8, who's just going to miss the Conference League? Not really too sure on this one. It could change depending on a couple of things, actually. James Maddison has been rumored to go to Newcastle, so that could change some things up. Me personally, I think it's going to be Leicester City who just miss out in 8th. And I think that's mainly due to the fact that they just haven't signed anyone at the moment. I still think their squad is good enough quality in order for them to get 8th place. If they were to lose the likes of James Maddison and lose the likes of Yuri Tillemans, yes, they recruit well, but those players are very, very good, very solid, and have been very important to Leicester over the past few seasons. I can see them going down to as low as probably the mid-table section, 11th through 14th. And in worst case scenario, they could be way, way down if they had Vardy out injured for a while and they lost both of those two players. So that could be a bit of a problem for them. However, if the likes of Maddison does go to Newcastle, they do have the likes of Kane and Dewsbury Hall at 5 million in FPL, who could be brilliant as well and would be playing that number 10 role. In 7th place, I think West Ham retain their Conference League position. I think they have a very good squad at the moment. Maybe some slight injury concerns at center back. They now have brought in Scamacca as well, who I think is a fantastic signing. Very akin to the way West Ham want to play. And I think that because of that, with that squad rotation, I think that West Ham will now get the European trophy they've been looking for, and they'll get in the Conference League. They were so close last season in the Europa League, but I think the Conference League slightly easier. They have the backup for Antonio. They have depth in the attacking areas. They've brought in Aguerd, who by the time the European fixtures rolls around, he should be good to go at center back. They have 2 very good goalkeepers in Fabianski and Areola, who are perfectly in their own right able to come in and do a job in any situation. I think West Ham are going to win the Conference League this season. Now, Europa League places and the top 4. We got the greedy 6 left to pick from here. Who is going to be the lowest of the bunch? Me personally, I'm a United fan, but I'm a bit of a pessimist. And I think that I can see United only finishing 6th this season. I just have this feeling. I think United can still progress and finish 6th place, because I think that they can do something in Europa League, and hence why I've got them to finish 6th and win the Europa League. Now, this does get them a bye into the Champions League. Would I prefer them to not win the Europa League and just get top 4 outright? Yes, I would, but I can't say that with a kind of an honest heart, basically, that United are going to get top 4 with the current signings that they have. Frankie de Jong looks like he could be going to Chelsea now. They don't have Anthony in the door. We have no backup to Ronaldo if he leaves as well. We have literally just Anthony Martial. It just seems like the transfer strategy was eggs all in one basket for Frankie de Jong. Our current midfield consists of Fred McTominay and Jimmy Garner, with a couple of youth players as well. Just not what you're looking for in midfield. Our attacking depth is nowhere to be seen. Basically, if Rashford, Martial, or Sancho get injured, we bring in Alanga or someone from the academy like Garnacho. Yes, very good attacking talents, but they are just teenagers, basically. They're very, very young players and don't have much Premier League experience. So, again, I think United will potentially develop these players in the Europa League group stages, and we could see them go on to lift the Europa League trophy and get the spot that way, because I think you're easily able to do a cup run rather than keep it consistent over 38 games, and they could shift towards it, which could see them have a lower position in the league and get 6th place. Now, who's going to miss out on the Champions League places? We have Chelsea, Man City, Liverpool, Spurs, and Arsenal. I think that last season, Arsenal were fantastic in various portions of the season. I think Chelsea were good in portions of the season. Same as Spurs. Liverpool and City were their consistent best for the most part. It's just going to be who's going to be the most consistent and who's going to be ultimately the least consistent. I think this season is probably going to be unlike last season, where basically everyone was kind of trying to give away the top 4 spot to any other team, and ultimately Spurs came out with that. Personally, I think that Arsenal miss out again. And here's why. It's mainly due to the fact that I think that Chelsea are not done in the transfer market, and I think Chelsea's just 11 itself is still very good. I think that eventually they will figure it out, And I think eventually they will solve the issues that need to be solving. Also, Sterling and Koulibaly are fantastic in their in their respective roles. Koulibaly is a fantastic, pacey, dominant center back, and Sterling can play anywhere across the front three. And it's the type of player that, given Ben Chilwell and Reece James's delivery, could be a tap-in merchant for many, many goals this season for Chelsea. Also in FPL could be very good at 10 million as well. I think that Arsenal, now that they have European football, they have Europa League, assuming they don't get knocked out, crazily early and come fourth in their group or something like that, I think that may take their eye potentially off of the top four. And I think that Chelsea might just barely slip in when they're able to do it, because Chelsea are a team that, if things aren't going right, they'll sack the manager and then they go on and win the Champions League or something like that. They've done it before. Literally, Thomas Tuchel was the prime example of that. Same with Roberto Di Matteo. I just think they'll just sneak ahead of Arsenal. Moving on to the top three now. Spurs is a team that I didn't think I was going to be putting in the top four last season. I don't think I did put them in the top four, or even close to that. But I'm going to put them in third place this season. I think they'll definitely challenge at points versus Liverpool and Man City. But ultimately, I think that Spurs will be the team that is probably has the best chance, at least as it stands right now. However, I do think that the flop of the season will play for Spurs. And unfortunately, I think that's going to be Richarlison. And the only reason I say that is because he's typically been playing game in, game out for the likes of Everton, and I think that he's going to be subbed on in most games, and he's going to be potentially the replacement through the middle. He could play off the left as well. It doesn't necessarily play off the right, but it's mostly going to be utilized from the start, at least in the European competitions. Potentially if Kane needs a break, like if they're playing a weaker opposition away from home or something like that, he might be in from the start. And I just don't see Richarlison living up to his potential price tag. I think he's a good player. I just don't think the price tag of, I think it was, what, £60 million? I'm just not sure if that's going to be the best value for the pound, if you know what I mean there. So I think he might not have a great season. I also think in FPL as well, 8.5 million forward, I think that's probably a bit too expensive for him as well. But I'm willing to be proved wrong. I think when Richarlison's in full flow and not worrying about like antics of rolling around on the floor and diving all over the place, and he just actually gets his head down and just starts dribbling and starts creating chances and scoring goals, he is a fantastic player and a Brazilian international as well, and look forward to seeing him in the Brazil squad come the World Cup. But yeah, I think Richarlison might be the player that could have a bad season, just based on the fact that he's playing second fiddle to the current front three at Spurs and needs to find his feet there. That's not saying that he couldn't go on and do great things and be fantastic for them in the second half of the season or in the next season. I just think there might be a slight betting in time. Maybe you have to get used to kind of the bit part role and see how that kind of pans out. Moving into the top two, who is going to be the top two? I think it's going to be the same as what it was last season. I think Liverpool are going to come second, and I think Man City are going to come first. There's no reason for me to not say that Man City are going to come first. They are odds-on favorites. They just signed arguably the best striker in the world. They matched basically Liverpool's signing in Darwin Núñez. Yes, Darwin Núñez scored in the Community Shield and Haaland didn't, but I think that Haaland, with his 1.5 something XG in that game, he's going to score a billion tap-ins for City this season as well. And I think he brings a different dynamic to City than they had before. And I think City are just slightly better in terms of quality in depth. I think maybe fullback is a position that they might be light in. But I think for the rest, if they keep Bernardo Silva, Julian Alvarez is looking to be a fantastic prospect. Haaland stays fit. De Bruyne stays fit. They could be fantastic this season. And my surprise player of the season, and actually young player of the season, is going to be Julian Alvarez. I think he was brilliant in the Community Shield. I wish United had signed him, but I think he's someone who is going to play into the mold of Pep Guardiola and eventually become Man City's number 9, potentially replacing Sergio Aguero, a long-standing member of Man City and a great goal scorer, arguably one of the best, if not the best, in the Premier League. Maybe Alan Shearer and Thierry Henry and Wayne Rooney probably have a say in that, but Julian Alvarez could be the next best thing, because I don't think Haaland is potentially a long-term thing. He does have a release clause, which I think comes out in like two years or so, which apparently Real Madrid are just going to pay, which is some ridiculous fee. And Julian Alvarez could be the type of striker that long-term Pep wants to use and develop. And I think that Julian Alvarez could be fantastic. Surprise young player of the season. Also, for the player of the season, I think that's actually going to go to Harry Kane. And the reason I say that is because I think Antonio Conte getting Spurs into 3rd place, I think Harry Kane's going to be influential to that. His creative aspects of his game have come from strength to strength. And I think he is someone who is so important that if you literally look and say, which player, if removed from the team, can that team not do without? And I think Harry Kane is that. Because basically, if you remove Harry Kane from Spurs, I don't know how they create chances and score goals. The amount of times that he drops off the line and pings the ball in behind, or occupies defenders, or scores goals himself, or has a consistency at scoring, like when he gets penalties, a penalty box threat. He's just a complete overall player. Also could be coming off a high if England were to do well and take home the World Cup as well. So one to watch there. I think Harry Kane is going to be the player of the season. The Golden Boot winner, I think as well, is going to be, Harry Kane will be close, but I think ultimately it's probably going to be Mo Salah. I think that's another reason why Kane will probably be player of the season. Yes, Mo Salah might be the Golden Boot winner, but I don't think that Liverpool potentially have as much success in the trophies this season. I think that City, again, will win the Carabao Cup. Maybe they go up against each other. Liverpool get knocked out early in the FA Cup. Maybe they get far in the Champions League. But I think Salah's Golden Boot win potentially the season outright, or even tied with Kane. I think those two could be the close ones there. Again, Haaland will take some adjustments. Same with Nunez. I think that Salah will win the Golden Boot. And I think that Kane wins player of the season. Maybe Kane even ties him in the Golden Boot, as mentioned. I just think Kane, overall as a player, could be really outshining everyone this season. Salah, though, just a goal machine. He's going to be my man for the Golden Boot winner. And then lastly, the last thing to mention after City have picked up the Premier League is who's going to win the Champions League. And I think this might be a surprise pick for most, but I'm actually going to go with Bayern Munich. And the reason being is because Julian Nagelsmann has changed up the system. He's now got Sadio Mane in there. He's got Serge Gnabry. He's got the likes of Leroy Sané, formerly of Manchester City. Kimmich and Goretzka, if these guys can stay fit, they could be an absolute dynamic outlet that causes all sorts of problems. They're going to obviously walk over the Bundesliga. Shouldn't be any problems there. But I think in European competition, they could be tactically flexible enough to cause teams problems. I think the likes of Sadio Mane is probably a much more suitable kind of number 9, as it were, for Julian Nagelsmann, and they don't have to rely on the likes of just Lewandowski basically getting in the box and scoring. They're basically reverting to more of a false 9 sort of system, and much more pacey and pressing front 3 with the likes of Gnabry and Sané and Sadio Mane and Kingsley Coman and these sorts of players. I think Bayern could be fantastic to watch this season. I think close second places here could be the likes of PSG and Liverpool. I think those two in European competition will probably step it up this season. I think Liverpool could make it to the final again, and I think PSG, obviously Liverpool missed out last season to Real Madrid, and I think PSG should improve this season and be better than what they were last season, especially in European competition. So that's going to do it for all my predictions. You can see the table up on the screen here, and let me know what you think down in the comments below. Post it in the comments 1st through 20th. Put your surprise player, your your FA Cup winner, and everything else we've mentioned on here. And let me know what you think is going to happen this FPL season. Welcome to the Fantasy Football Scout members area, the one place that you need to be tuned into for the upcoming FPL season. It has a wide variety of resources and tools that will help improve your FPL game today. It has a bunch of different members-only articles written by some of the best FPL managers across the globe, heat maps for all the players and positions, as well as player comparison tools, which will help you see side by side who is going to be more effective for your FPL team, fully customizable stats tables powered by Opta stats, and much, much more. Use the link down in the description below so that you can get access to the Fantasy Football Scout members area today. It'll help improve your FPL game. This video has been sponsored by Manscaped, the best in male below-the-waist grooming. Make sure to check out manscaped.com so you can see the latest and greatest updates to their lawnmower, as well as their performance package, and much, much more for all their gadgets and gizmos to help keep your family jewels looking as shiny as ever. Make sure to use the code FLAME20 so that you can get 20% off your next Manscaped order, as well as free worldwide shipping. Go check out manscaped.com today. And that's going to do it for my Premier League 22-23 predictions. If you haven't done so already, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe channel if you are new, and turn those notification bells on so that you can get the content as soon as it is readily available. Also drop us a follow over on Twitter so that you can keep up to date with any and all FPL news, and give us a follow over on Twitch so that you can join us live for our preview, deadline, and any impromptu FPL streams. There's a pinned comment down below to let you know the details for our deadline stream this Friday for game week 1. And lastly, shout out to Fantasy Football Scout, who are going to be a partner for us this season again. There's a link down in the description below. I think there's still a discount going on as well to get access to their members area at a cut price. It's going to help elevate your FPL game. Thank you all for watching, and until the next one, take care.